Hello, Robert Bastian here of Laryngopedia and Bastian Voice Institute. Every year I get a number of questions to Laryngopedia, my teaching website, or to my YouTube channel, also called Laryngopedia, and it's about noisy breathing. And so people go to my encyclopedia online and they think maybe their noisy breathing is laryngospasm or stenosis or bilateral vocal cord paralysis, and they don't know which. And so let me just take you through a brief discussion of those three entities. And so without further ado, let's go straight to the PowerPoint. So noisy inspiration. And by the way, noisy expiration is the big one there would be asthma. Asthma is wheezing on expiration, and we're talking about noisy inspiration. So three breathing disorders. There are others, but let's just deal with these three. There's laryngospasm, there's bilateral vocal cord paralysis, and there's subglottic or tracheal stenosis. So let's go through them. Here's laryngospasm, the normal open larynx. If you're sitting and watching this and you're not humming or talking or swallowing, that's what your larynx looks like, upper left. Wide open vocal cords in the shape of a V as in Victor, and you can see the very big trachea, the big dark opening below the vocal cords leading down the trachea towards the lungs. So there's the open larynx, and this person is basically on their face, and we're looking towards their feet. So with laryngospasm, a person could be sitting reading, they could be watching TV, they could be sound asleep at night, and very suddenly the vocal cords, which are supposed to be in this position, go to this position. It's like a Charlie horse or like those middle of the night toe cramps. Suddenly the larynx clamps shut and the person awakens, or they're suddenly startled and terrified, and either they make no noise because they can't move a molecule, or more often there's a little sound like that and everyone gets excited around them. 20 seconds or so and you begin to hear a little more air movement, kind of a, and then another 20 seconds or so and it might be kind of a, and then finally after 1 to 2 minutes they're back to normal. I mean, their breathing is restored. They're not back to normal because they may be sweating, they may be terrified still, and they're answering questions from people around them who are very excited. But I'm just saying that the Charlie horse typically is over, the clamping, the closure of the vocal cords is over within 1 to 2 minutes. Now sometimes people say, no, it's longer than 1 or 2 minutes, but what they're really talking about is a series of laryngospasms. They're just nicely coming out of one and another one hits. Most commonly around a minute, but that's a minute of terror. And inspiratory noise is vocal noise. You hear the, or you can hear a little pitch within the sound. Is the pitch that you just heard there. Was the pitch that you heard. So you know that it's vocal cords that are making this sound. That's laryngospasm. What about bilateral vocal cord paralysis? Well, in that case, the fixed or the best position is partially closed. So the picture on the left here is the best you would ever see with bilateral vocal cord paralysis. Commonly, it's a little less space than that. And at rest, reading a book and so forth, they may be completely quiet. If the space is narrower, you may even hear during rest, you might hear these little noises just when they're even breathing quietly, but they're not excited because it's like that all day and all night. You will be able to tell that it's vocal cord paralysis if you ask the person to breathe in suddenly. If you say, can you do this? Go. They can't do that. It's always going to be a or a some kind of an inspiratory noise, and there again you hear a pitch. You know that's vocal noise. E was the last pitch that I just made, but I made it. E is the pitch. That's vocal cord noise, and so that's bilateral vocal cord paralysis. And of course, If they're vacuuming, mowing, running upstairs, you're going to hear the noise every time they breathe in because the velocity of air is more rapid. If you put two pieces of paper together and blow between them, they don't blow apart. They suck together by the Bernoulli effect. Try it and you'll see what I mean. So bilateral vocal cord paralysis, this is the best it ever gets on the left. And anytime the speed of airflow increases, they're going to make an involuntary inspiratory phonation, a kind of a noise. And also when sleeping at night, they may make noise all night long, but they're sleeping soundly, and they're bothering people around them, and they're told, oh, you're kind of moaning all night long, a kind of a that kind of a thing all night long. So that's bilateral vocal cord paralysis. Well, what about stenosis? Again, showing you the normal, this very large black opening that's the trachea. Well, here's subglottic stenosis. Look how small that opening is. Or here's subglottic and tracheal stenosis. Again, so much smaller than this normal size. Or here's a tracheal stenosis deeper down in the trachea. In each of those cases, they are mainly going to notice the restriction, not at rest, but they're going to notice it when they're active, climbing stairs and so forth. You never hear vocal noise. You don't hear the sound. You hear a harsh inspiratory noise. It sounds kind of like a so there's no pitch to be heard in there. It's a harsh rushing air noise. So when you ask them to do a they don't do a that would be vocal cord noise. They do a that kind of a harsh inspiratory noise. So the difference between laryngospasm on the left, the two normal most of the time. They can run, they can climb stairs, no problem. It's only at that random moment, which could be just a few times a year, that they have that Charlie horse problem. They can't breathe and they make inspiratory noise and they're back to their baseline within a couple of minutes. The bilateral vocal cord paralysis baseline, they're always in this position. They're never more open than that. And when they bring the airflow in rapidly, there's that inspiratory Bernoulli effect, and you hear vocal noise. So in both of these two cases, laryngospasm and bilateral vocal cord paralysis, you hear vocal noise, or there's a pitch embedded within that sound. Stenosis, on the other hand, you never hear vocal noise. You only hear that harsh inspiratory sound, and that's going to be accentuated with the increased rapidity of inspiratory airflow. Well, let's make a list of differentiators. So let's say the person says, I always have a problem with activity. Well, that's got to be bilateral vocal cord paralysis, where the space is always limited, or stenosis, where the caliber of the airway is always limited. And so anytime you have activity, day, night, Monday, Tuesday, anytime you increase your activity, you're going to have a problem with a feeling of restriction. Laryngospasm isn't like that. You're only going to have a problem with activity when you have a laryngospasm, which is a very tiny percentage of your time. What about trouble that's occasional, brief, and terrifying? That's going to be laryngospasm, and with, again, the vocal noise, that kind of a noise. Noise always depends on exertion, bilateral vocal cord paralysis, or stenosis. You can make noise based in the spasm, which could occur when you're sitting still or when you're in a deep sleep, if it's laryngospasm. More or less continuous noise if deeply asleep, that's typically going to be bilateral vocal cord paralysis. Most people with stenosis, the noise is less when they're sleeping than it is at any time during the day, because the air requirement and the airflow is very gentle and very slow. What if the exam never shows an open or breathing position of the vocal cords, bilateral vocal cord paralysis? Exam always shows open cords for breathing. That's laryngospasm or stenosis. So let's just go back up one more time to look at the three entities: laryngospasm, bilateral vocal cord paralysis, give you vocal noise, always with inspiration, and it's at any time if it's paralysis, and it's only at those rare moments of laryngospasm. And then the stenosis is never a vocal noise. It's always the harsh inspiratory noise, and it's heard with increased airflow. And it's always, no matter when you do the increased airflow, either by going or by getting active, you always are going to hear that harsh sound. Well, I hope that helps a little bit. Somebody out there who is trying to see their problem as one when it's actually the other, and obviously you have to go to a physician. But here's one of the motivations for this video. It's that people sometimes have these noises, but the noises are not audible during the visit to the primary care doctor. And so now you know how to demonstrate the problem to your primary care doctor to get that appropriate referral to an ENT physician. Well, thank you for listening.